Some people build a facade to win you over, but their real character emerges in the moments they believe they're unobserved. She smiled with her lips, but her eyes were full of venom. She offered polite greetings, but her words dripped with contempt. Because when you think you're on top, it's easy to feign kindness. The real challenge is treating someone with respect when you believe they don't matter. But what she didn't know was that the simple woman in the apron was the mother of the man she claimed to love, and in that silence, she orchestrated her own downfall. The stark, imposing mansion in the hills overlooking the city was grand, cold, and quiet. The kind of place where the polished floors have more life in them than the eyes of the people who live there. Ethan had moved in just a few months earlier after selling his tech startup for a fortune. He was young, a visionary, full of ideas, but blind when it came to matters of the heart. Chloe, his fiancée, was the type of woman who looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine. Elegant, articulate, with an undeniable presence. They had met at an investor gala, and within 3 months they were engaged. But Eleanor, Ethan's mother, wasn't convinced. She knew her son. She knew how good-hearted he was, and how that could be a magnet for someone hungry for status. Eleanor had been living in Europe for years, after building an empire in the fashion industry. She was discreet, powerful, yet her feet were firmly planted in the humble past she never forgot. When she heard about the engagement, she decided to return to the States. Not with fanfare, not with announcements. She wanted to look into Chloe's eyes without being recognized. No filters, no flattery, no masks. With the help of her longtime butler, Arthur, Eleanor crafted a simple disguise. She would go by Ellie, a supposed housekeeper recommended by a family friend. That morning she arrived early. Simple clothes, her hair tied back, a humble posture. She rang the service bell, and she waited. It was just a visit, just a test. But what she was about to witness would change everything. The side door of the mansion opened slowly. Chloe appeared with her arms crossed, wearing a silk robe and a look that carried more weight than any luggage. "And you are?" "I'm Ellie. I'm here about the housekeeping position. I spoke with Mr. Arthur." Chloe let out a short, almost mocking smile. She scanned Eleanor from head to toe, as if appraising a piece of old furniture. "Come in. Let's see what you can do." Eleanor walked through the kitchen in silence, feeling the heavy air. Everything was immaculate. Gleaming countertops, expensive flowers, absolute quiet. But something in the fiancé's eyes was screaming. Ethan appeared in the hallway, still in his suit from a morning meeting. He saw Eleanor but didn't recognize her. She averted her gaze with a faint smile. "Who's this?" "The new housekeeper. She'll be helping out for a few days." "Oh, right. Welcome." Her son greeted her warmly, then moved on, completely unsuspecting. Eleanor felt a pang in her chest. To see her own son, so close, without him knowing who she was. It hurt, but it had to be this way. In the days that followed, she began her work. Quiet, dedicated, always present, organizing books, cleaning windows, observing. And slowly, the details began to surface. Chloe would give orders without ever making eye contact. She complained about the faint scent of Eleanor's perfume, the way she walked, the way she folded the towels. It all seemed too trivial for such profound disdain. But it was there, in those small gestures, that her judgment was revealed. Eleanor never reacted. She just watched. And every moment of her silence was another step toward the truth. On Wednesday afternoon, while setting the dining room for a lunch Chloe was hosting for her friends, Eleanor overheard something that cut deeper than the ears. "She has a strange look about her, you know," one of the guests said, referring to her. "Oh, I know. I noticed that too. There's something about that kind of person that's unsettling. Like they're always trying to prove something." Chloe laughed. "I keep her around because she's discreet, but you have to watch them. You never know." Eleanor, standing just outside the door, took a deep breath. It wasn't what they said. It was the tone, the casual ease with which they diminished someone just because they seemed lesser. Hours later, as she was clearing the plates, Chloe called out to her, "Ellie, Can you possibly make a decent cup of coffee? This stuff you make tastes like dishwater. Eleanor held her gaze for a second, but she swallowed her words. Yes, ma'am. That night, sitting alone on a concrete bench in the laundry room, she held a clean cloth in her hands. It was spotless, perfect, but her eyes were welling up. There, surrounded by bleached linens and dirty words, Eleanor understood what she had feared most. Chloe wasn't cruel because she was stressed, or because she was young. She was this way because she believed she was better. And when someone believes they are better, it's only a matter of time before they hurt everyone around them. Eleanor didn't need any more days, or any more proof. The question she had already been answered. The breaking point came on a cloudy Friday. The house was quiet, with Ethan working in his home office and Chloe organizing a small dinner for her parents, who were coming to officially meet the groom-to-be. Eleanor spent the morning polishing the main hall as usual. Everything seemed to be following the same silent script until a bracelet went missing. "Where is my gold bracelet?" Chloe shouted from the bedroom. "I left it right here on the vanity. It was here yesterday." In seconds, her tone became a storm. "Ellie, have you seen a bracelet around here?" Eleanor calm replied, "No, ma'am. I haven't even been in this room today." Chloe forced a smile in front of her parents, but her voice was as sharp as a knife. "Funny. You're the only other person in this house all day." Ethan emerged, alarmed by her tone. "What's going on?" "My bracelet is gone," and the only person who had access to the room was the housekeeper. Eleanor stood tall, her hands folded in front of her. She didn't say a word. She just looked at Chloe, as if seeing something far beyond her speech. "Honey, let's not make accusations without proof." Ethan tried to mediate, but Chloe was relentless. "People like this need to be put in their place. If she didn't do it, let her prove it." Silence. Arthur, who had been watching from a distance, stepped in and said calmly, "The bracelet was in the guest bathroom. It fell behind the soap dish. I found it myself." The embarrassment was instant, but Chloe acted as if it had nothing to do with her. "Good. I'm glad you found it." And she walked out of the room without a single glance at Eleanor. Ethan's mother lowered her head, not in shame, but in self-respect. She removed the apron, folded it neatly, and placed it in the butler's hands. She left the house just as she had entered, in silence, but inside, something was already screaming. Have you ever had to swallow your words to maintain your dignity? Have you ever been judged by what you wore, or by who they thought you were? If this scene tied a knot in your throat too, type "yes" in the comments, just so I know you're here and that you felt it. Eleanor returned to her penthouse apartment atop the city's most elegant skyscraper. From there, she could see the same sky, but now through different eyes. The next day, she cancelled her appointments, turned off her phone, and spent hours sitting at her table with a glass of white wine and a storm of thoughts. She wasn't angry. What she felt was worse, a serene disappointment, the kind that aches without shouting, as if someone had quietly switched off a light inside her. Ever since she was a little girl, Eleanor knew the weight of labels. She came from a tough childhood where being poor was an excuse for everything, to be doubted, to be ignored, to be humiliated. She built her empire with her own two hands, and she swore her son would never be surrounded by people who measure character by a bank statement. But now, here she was, watching Ethan, so kind and in love, trapped in a blind relationship. And on the other side, a woman who spoke as if people had a price tag. Eleanor didn't want revenge. She never did. She wanted clarity. And above all, she wanted to protect her son without taking away his power to choose. So, she acted the only way she knew how, with strategy and silence. She made a single request to Arthur. "Arrange a formal dinner here at my home. Tell Ethan I want to meet her as his mother." Arthur's eyes widened. "You're going to tell him everything?" Eleanor smiled. "I don't have to. She's already told on herself." In the days that followed, she went back to being herself, discreet, elegant, effortlessly commanding. Her companies continued to thrive, and no one would have guessed that the woman in the grey blazer featured in business journals had spent days scrubbing floors on her hands and knees. On the appointed evening, the table was set. Crystal glasses, white flowers, and low light. Ethan arrived beaming with Chloe by his side, perfectly made up, new jewelry, high heels. "Mom, this is Chloe." Eleanor extended her hand gracefully. "It's a pleasure. You and I have already met, though perhaps not in the way you imagined." Chloe went pale. The blood seemed to drain from her face. Her eyes flickered with panic. And in that moment, without raising her voice, Eleanor saw everything she needed to see. The truth sometimes doesn't need to be spoken. It just needs to be present. Chloe was frozen for a second that felt like an eternity. What do you mean?" Her voice was a low, nervous rasp. Eleanor simply offered an elegant smile. She sat down slowly at the head of the table with the same serene posture she'd had days before, while wearing an apron and holding a dish towel. But now, with her understated jewelry, her hair down, and her unwavering gaze, it was impossible not to see who she was and what she represented. "Ellie," Chloe murmured, not daring to say the full name. Ethan looked from one to the other, confused. "You two know each other?" Eleanor turned to him, her voice never losing its gentle tone. "We met informally. I wanted to get to know the woman my son was going to marry, but without any titles, without any pretense, just as people." Chloe attempted a laugh. "Was this some kind of test?" Eleanor replied calmly, "No. It was just a chance to see how you treat someone when you think they have nothing to offer you." The silence at the table was thick. Not even the silverware dared to move. "And what did you see?" Ethan asked, his voice softer than usual. Eleanor turned her gaze to Chloe. There was no anger, no contempt, only the clear disappointment of someone who had hoped for more from a human being and received less. "I saw enough." Chloe wanted to fight back. She thought about explaining, defending herself, making up any excuse, but she realized there were no words. What spoke loudest in that room was the contrast. Days ago, she was ordering Eleanor to lower her head. Now she was the one who couldn't hold her own gaze. And Eleanor didn't need to say another word. The truth had already been served, cold, and with the bitter taste of regret. Dessert arrived, but no one touched it. The atmosphere was frigid, not from the temperature, but from the weight of awareness. Ethan, visibly shaken, looked at Chloe as if seeing a stranger for the very first time. She tried to smile, to justify herself, but every word that came out was emptier than the last. I thought she was just an employee. I didn't know," she stammered, unsure of what she was even trying to say. Eleanor remained calm. She set her glass aside, lifted her gaze, and said, "And if you had known, would you have treated me differently?" Chloe didn't answer. She didn't have to. The absence of a response said everything. Eleanor then turned to her son, and for the first time that night, spoke directly to him. "Ethan, if this is how she treats people she thinks are beneath her, she isn't the one for you." It was like a final verdict, not delivered with anger or hatred, but with the firm conviction of a woman who knew the value of humility and the price of arrogance. Ethan didn't reply right away. He just looked at Chloe, and he saw. He truly saw. The sparkle that had once charmed him now looked like a cheap varnish, and deep in her eyes, he saw everything he didn't want for his life. After that night, nothing more needed to be said out loud. Chloe exited Ethan's life the same way she had entered, full of posture but devoid of truth. She tried to hang on to her pride, rehearsed her justifications, but deep down, she knew she had lost long before the reveal. Ethan, for the first time, saw the world through his mother's eyes, not with a business mindset or the rush of passion, but through the lens of character. Eleanor never had to raise her voice or prove her power, because true power isn't about what you have. It's about how you treat those who have nothing, and the greatest lesson of all echoed in the silence of that dining room. Sometimes the test isn't for the person who appears to be tested. Sometimes The one watching in silence is the one who understands the most. If this story stirred something inside you, leave a like. It's how we know we're reaching the people who truly feel. Now tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I read every single one with care, and I reply whenever I can. I truly want to hear from you. And if you believe in the power of stories that reveal people's true worth, subscribe to the channel. We're just getting started, and your subscription is what keeps all of this alive. And don't go just yet. Choose one of the 2 stories I've left on the screen for you to watch right now. I'll see you in the next video.